You can get close to the mic, but you don't actually want to eat it. I know we all have notes.
I have very few notes.
I have
notes.
a lot of notes. Well, they're like short notes because they're my
Clip notes.
They're my shorthand to myself. They don't make sense.
Oh God, I forgot. For some reason wrote down twitching meat horse. Okay.
What?
Because it sounded funny. Anyway.
So, hello and welcome to Let's Put On a show about musical theater and musical theater by someone who's really, really into all of those things.
Someone who really isn't at all.
And someone who's in the middle.
So, I'm Sabra.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Lane.
Sam, otherwise known as Deaf Stuff Guy.
I killed Rob.
He killed Rob. Yep, it's a very sad day.
Yeah. Go in the lore.
Yep, follow the lore here on Let's Put On a Show.
Yeah.
So, today we are talking about the stage adaptation of Baz Luhrmann's 2002 epic film
Around there.
Moulin Rouge.
That sounds right.
And it is currently in an out-of-town tryout in Boston, which we saw the literal second performance of.
Yeah, not the
And we have
figurative one.
we have some opinions about it.
We have a
do.
lot of feelings about this show. Namely, it's very different.
Not necessarily all in a bad way.
Not in a bad way. It's
Not in a great way.
well, also, I want our listeners to keep in mind, we saw the literal second public performance ever of this show. Like, they have a lot to do, and by all of the social media I've heard about it, a lot has changed since we saw it.
Yeah.
But since we only saw that performance, that's one we're operating on. So if you have seen it, but between now and the time it finishes previews, message us. Let us know what changed from what we talk about, because I am honestly dying to know, and I have a lot of feelings about the show. So let's get started. I feel like we should operate like, I feel like most people have seen the movie.
Yeah.
And the basic plot is mostly the same. Like, the bare bones of it. A lot of scenes have changed, and characters that didn't have names, and...
To the deficit of the entire character.
Yeah.
Character only worked because he didn't have a name.
So, the narcoleptic Argentinian now has a name, and his name is Santiago.
And it's the worst thing that's ever happened.
I don't get that, but...
Just seeing the credits roll and just saying narcoleptic Argentinian played by... It was the best thing. That was like one of the main reasons you watched the movie.
Yeah. Narcoleptic Argentinian, played by Jacek Koman in the film.
Yes. It was Polish. I know that much.
Oh,
I mean, I had a teacher named Jacek in college.
interesting.
Same guy.
I mean, he
How
could've
far
been.
he's fallen.
I was gonna say his last name was Alaric, but whatever.
Anyway.
So, just gonna run down the list real quick of the main cast. So in the film, Christian, the romantic lead, was played by Ewan McGregor. On stage, he's played by Aaron Tveit. Satine was played by Nicole Kidman. On stage, she was played by Karen Olivo. Zidler was Jim Broadbent. In the stage production, he's Danny Burstein. The Duke was Richard Roxburgh. On stage, he's Tam Mutu. Nini was Carolyn O'Connor. On stage, she's Robin Herder. And Santiago was Jacek Koman, and on stage he's Ricky Rojas. At least I think that's how you say his last name. So that was an amazing, like, to me, we all have very differing opinions on this. I love this cast. But I have a very deep-seated obsession with Tam Mutu at this point.
It's upsetting.
It is upsetting. Like, he was, like, half the reason this trip happened.
It's highly impacted your life. He's infiltrated your entire existence at this point. It's
So please keep that in mind,
Yes.
friends.
Yes, I just... So, my story with Tam is I saw him in a production of City of Angels in London, opposite Hadley Fraser. He was stoned to Hadley Stein, and they were just phenomenal together, and I fell in love with both of them. And then Tam did a show at the Fifth Avenue Theater, March of 2017, Secret Garden. And I saw that 3 times. And
So take with that what you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is how much I love this man. And so,
full disclosure.
And he plays the Duke, and I have a lot of feelings about the Duke. Surprise!
Absolutely no one.
So I feel like we should start with Sam and his feelings on this show.
Where do we start?
Wherever
Whatever you want.
Oh no. Well,
he has notes.
Well, they're adjacent to notes.
No, it's adjacent.
Yeah. Well, let's start with
Kristen?
Sure. He's like one of the first things we see.
Yeah. So show opens like cold, like it's not even a cold open. It's like as the audience is coming in, there are people in costume on stage walking about very slowly and sedately and interacting with each other in a very heightened manner.
Yeah. Very kind of surreal.
This is directed by Alex Timbers. So if you are at all aware of his directing style, this is very Alex Timbers.
They got the most Baz Luhrmann stage director they could find.
Yeah,
Yes.
basically.
Okay.
But yeah, so the show starts with this, what I think is really cool sort of ambiance type thing with music and people sort of just filtering in. Like first it's just one and then it's a few, and you have some people sitting in chairs on one side, and you have dancers sort of milling around and interacting both with their fellow actors on stage and with folks in the audience, because the way they set up the stage is there's this super, super VIP area in the front that is almost part of a catwalk that's part of the stage. So they're interacting as much as they can and will with those folks. And it just looks and feels really cool and gets you into the mindset and the aesthetic of what this show is going to be. And I really like that from the whole point of sort of the feel of the show. And I think that's really cool, and I hope that it stays.
I do too. I liked how subtle it was. You didn't really notice at first. Like most people didn't notice until there were 4 or 5 people on stage before they're like, oh, there are people on stage.
People.
Yeah.
Because it was
Me
very,
is like, as soon as the first one came out, which I think was Reed Luplow. I follow most of this cast on social media because that's the kind of nerd I am.
He was like one of the background actors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like, house lights dim, Christian walks out stage left and crosses across, makes a gesture, and this big fluorescent Moulin Rouge sign rises up to the ceiling, and the show starts.
Yep.
And I thought that felt a little disjointed because he doesn't say anything.
It's weird. I don't like it.
You don't really know exactly
You
who,
don't
he
know
is.
who he is.
You assume you might know.
Like,
but,
I knew who he was because I know who Aaron Tveit is.
Yeah. But I had to just guess.
It's disjointed and funky, and it doesn't happen again. If it happened in Act 2, I might be able to let it go, because recurring aesthetic things are important to me, but it just happens at the beginning, and it feels like they're going for a specific idea, and it doesn't really work. Mm-hmm. It just kind of is, he's there, and it's like, this is kind of weird, and it feels off from the vibe of where we've been, and we go completely in another direction, and then it wants to just go right back into this bright Moulin Rouge cabaret-ish aesthetic, and it feels funky, and I don't like it. It takes me out of where I want to be. And
the stage show starts with the show in the Moulin Rouge. We're not introduced to the characters beforehand.
Which I liked.
Yeah. It just, we start out with Diamond's our girl's best friend. Or, actually, we start out with a chorus number, and then just as Satine's about to be introduced, Christian stands up and is just like, this is a story about love.
It was
and
very
it
was
very
bad.
jarring.
I didn't like it.
But I understand what they're trying to go for, and that's probably changed. Like,
I don't know. That seems like a big change if they did.
Yeah.
That's like a major script change.
Well,
which,
that's what happens in previews.
I didn't. Okay, that's how.
Yeah.
That's how much I don't normally care about this kind of stuff. I have no idea.
Yeah. So, and anyway, and then you get a little bit of backstory about him coming, and they've made Christian American, which I'm not sure. I kind of understand the decision making there, but at the same time,
I mean, it's an American audience.
Yeah.
They're pandering, but it made him whiny and unlikable in a not a charming way. It made him annoying. It made him like he was playing up the American accent to a point where it was really nasally, and I thought it was a really bad decision. You didn't like him. He was not likable. Basically, from the second he's on stage to the end of the show.
Yeah.
I did not like him. Like you can't relate to him at all.
Yeah,
I wasn't quite that bad.
That's okay. I was just gonna say, from the American accent perspective, the American perspective, it's there. It's part of his character, but it's just there enough to be annoying, but it's not enough of his character to make it worth it. Like, it's frustrating, and I don't want it to be there, but it's not frustrating enough. Like, it's there, and I get it, but I don't like it. But it's not annoying enough for me to necessarily want to be rid of it. They either need to get rid of it or make it not necessarily more of his character, but it needs to be either less of a deal or more of a deal. It's just kind of in the middle, and it's, once again, it's funky and it's off, and I just, I don't like it.
So my whole thing is, like, why, like, my instinct is to say they did it because the show is being made for an American audience and they want the link into the show to be American and identifiable. But at the same time, like, was there another decision that went into it? Like, could Aaron not do an English accent, or, you know, even RP? RP is received pronunciation. It's like Dr. Bashir from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And I don't mind, because I'm used to Aaron Tveit being American. Like, every role I've seen him in, he's been American. But it's still, like, if you've seen the film, you're used to Ewan McGregor. And he's got an RP, because he's actually Scottish.
Yeah.
And it's, like, I want Ewan McGregor, and that brings me to a whole thing. But do you guys have anything else you want to say before I launch into this?
Christian feels flat.
Yeah.
He was the least interesting character. Him and Satine were, I mean, that's all, in the movie, that's also true, but not to this degree. In this, I didn't care. And also, I am one of those people who really struggle to watch shows like The Office because of that cringe factor.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Same thing with like Arrested Development. Some of the stuff, like Michael Cera, I'm not a huge fan of because his whole style is very kind of cringy. And so whenever Aaron was on stage, I basically would just look at my feet because I was just embarrassed to. Okay. I don't know. There was something about his whole. I didn't hate him, but I think
he was the weakest part of the show.
He was the weakest part of the show, and I felt like either, you know, he could still do it with major changes, I think.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I mean, you brought up Satine, and now I'm thinking of, for me, watching the show, I enjoy it. I'm trying to figure out the best way to phrase this, but at the end of this, I don't necessarily care about Christian and Satine's relationship. I want this show to be Satine's story because of the changes in characterization and especially the changes in the background characters and everyone becoming a little bit more seamless with each other. I care less about the main focus of the story. I'm inserting air quotes here. And I want this to be more about her because of the certain elements that they've changed and certain aspects of the way that Karen Olivo acts this character. I necessarily don't want this to be a love story. I want it to be her story.
Mm-hmm. And kind of jumping off of that a little bit, a note I had made is, so these sets are so big and so bright and like opulent is actually a word I rarely use but would use for this. And Karen seems perfectly at home within these sets, even larger than them at some points. And Christian, like, Aaron just gets lost.
Yeah,
and like I will admit he was very, very tired. Like, if we might use the selfie from the stage door, but he is just obviously so exhausted.
Yeah, he shouldn't have done stage door. He was acting like he could barely. Yeah, the guy was asleep.
Yeah, he was asleep on his feet. But I'm going to launch into my thing, unless you guys can always.
I keep losing
interject.
My thought as you keep going on.
So my thing is in the film, the character of the Duke was this small, weaselly, greasy guy. And everything he did...
Aaron.
Everything he did was to try and woo Satine and show that he was a nice guy, air quotes, TM. And the problem was he was a nice guy, air quotes, TM, and not just a nice guy. It is the exact opposite in the stage show. The Duke is now this towering presence, and like he's got at least 6 inches on Christian. They dress him like Jareth got fashion advice from the Phantom.
Like a vampire hunter. He's like this long coat and all these. It's just yeah.
Yeah, and I love it. Like, I am so here for this iteration of the Duke. He is not a nice guy. He doesn't pretend to be a nice guy.
He's confident. He's charismatic. He's powerful.
Yeah. And also one thing they do is, like, after he agrees to be part of Spectacular, he and Satine, like, immediately go at it. Like there's no, oh, they haven't yet, and because she's preserving her virtue. And we are also robbed of Danny Burstein and Tam Mutu singing like a virgin because of these changes, but I'm okay with that. But he's just, he knows his money, he knows his name, and he knows his power. And just, he's doing this for a lark. He just, this is what interests him at a passing fancy. He's not obsessed with it. Satine's pretty. He's just like, I'll entertain her for a few months. And he then, when he agrees to help the ailing Moulin Rouge, is just like, oh, I own everything now, including you, including Satine, and is just evil.
He's like the hot villain guy now. Like, I'm doing air quotes again. Like, he's a bad guy, but you like him now.
Yeah, he's the bad boy everyone's gonna want to sleep with.
You like him more than the protagonist.
Yeah.
In this story, I think the casting. I mean, he's just more likable. Like, yeah, he's evil, but he has a character, and he isn't. That was a thing about about the whole movie. Like the whole plot of the movie is the entire story of Satine and Christian doesn't matter. It was the whole love story was a framework to hang this stylistic, crazy movie on. The story itself is bad. Like the whole love story, it's bad. It's meant to be bad. It's not meant to be this realistic. It's not meant to be treated seriously. It's meant to be this kind of fake feeling love story. And this play didn't. They could have played with that. They could have made it, but they treated it seriously. They played it up to be serious, and I feel like that was a mistake. It really was, in my mind, detrimental to the story because it didn't fit the rest of the characters or the flow or the plot. I mean, I don't know. The plot is not the correct word.
Well, and that's the thing to me is you bring that up, and like Baz Luhrmann has just always done these heightened reality stories.
Yeah, that's his thing.
And I completely agree with you about it was a framework to hang this just opulent thing on. And that's kind of the draw of it is it's not real, it's high fantasy, like without elves and magic and shit. It's as close as you get to high fantasy without that. And some people want just, dare I compare this to Ride the Cyclone? Because there was the scene in Ride the Cyclone about I want to be that fucked up girl, where he basically dreams about being Satine.
Yeah, but that's not treating it seriously. That's going. The character is aware that it's not real and not realistic.
Yeah.
And this it was just.
But it's still a fantasy, and that's one thing from what I understand about what's changed in the show since we saw it, is it is getting more into the everything is heightened reality instead of trying to bring grounding to it, because that was the weakest part of the show was when they tried to ground it. And the show is not meant to be grounded.
The show is aesthetic with a capital A. That's what it's supposed to be.
But they didn't make the love story aesthetic. They made the love story, they played it like it was real. And they could have made it, it would have been saved by being much more over the top.
Well, and
like,
that's...
To the point where it would become, it felt like the show wasn't aware of that aspect of the story. I'm not sure how to put this into words. I think you get what I mean.
I do.
Yeah.
And that's like I've made friends with people who have seen it since. And that's one thing is like, Come What May has gone from being like this small little intimate number, which it was never intended to be. Sorry, into something like the movie was. Well, while they're, enjoying each other and hiding from the Duke, and it's flying instead of being grounded now.
Okay.
And Elephant Love Medley, they added Glitter Rain, which was something I lamented, because in the film, at the end of Elephant Love Medley, when they're on the fake Eiffel Tower and there's this glitter rain and they're swirling through the mist, when we saw it, they didn't have that, but they added that, because I was just like, that is a very important part of the end of that song, to show the heightened reality of everything. And it's hopefully settled a lot. I really want to see this again.
Yes.
Once it has found its feet and settles.
It's grown up a little bit.
Yeah.
Speaking of settling, and music. The music in the show is great. They've added a lot of songs and adjusted things, as we sort of alluded to. There is music that has come out since the film that they have added to this show.
Quite a bit.
Yes, which is fine. I think that's really cool, and it works for what they're doing. But there are some moments where, because we literally saw the second performance of the show, it needs the fact that music is in there needs to settle in. People need to be aware of it, because I don't know if this was our audience or just in general, it was kind of awkward because people would laugh when they recognize
every
something.
time. I think that was maybe once it becomes more.
They need to make people aware of that, because once they do, that will probably go away. And once people are like, oh, okay, these songs that I like are in there, and that's cool, and that reaction would be different, because I like that, and a lot of the music really, really works for the show, and the way it's...
Most of it did.
Yeah, most of it works, and the arrangements are really cool, and all of that, and everything fits, but it just... That was... For the show we saw, it was a little awkward, and it made things a little weird, and...
They changed Roxanne.
Oh, thank God.
I mean, just you mentioned the arrangements. I thought that was one of the weakest parts of the show. Because most of the rearrangements were not... They didn't fit the tone. Most of them were just a band playing the soundtrack to a song and them singing over it. It was not changed for the era. It wasn't kind of made more whimsical like the Baz Luhrmann, soundtrack
That's
was.
fair.
To the point where when you get to Roxanne is the only song in the entire show that is the exact backing track from the film.
But they changed the lyrics.
They didn't really change the lyrics.
Yeah, they did. They never had the Roxanne. They didn't have that in the film. And it was also sung by the Argentinian, not Christian. It's sung by Christian now.
Yeah, but this backing track was identical. It was because I'd seen the movie a month before, and it's the same track. And it's the only song in the whole show that they did that for. Everything else was... And it took me out because it felt like they hadn't finished the... It felt like they weren't done.
Agreed.
And they just had to put filler music in and then do it later, because it just felt really disjointed that way.
Not necessarily with the music, but I agree with that sentiment of things didn't feel quite finished, which is fine. Like, it's a preview, and the show is in its out of town. It's going to adjust and change as they keep going. But that sentiment I do agree with, and I'll come back to that later when we talk about some other things.
And I was thinking about that. Maybe they did that slightly on purpose, because it's about a show that is in production. The whole show, but I feel like that could just be an excuse while they work on it, to be like, to have people fill that in their mind and be like, okay, maybe that's why. But
interesting. I didn't think of that.
One thing I do want to bring up is they took the racial fetishization out of this show. Marination Station.
Not sponsored.
So in the film, the whole show within the show is, set in India about a sitar player and a courtesan.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of, fetishizing Indian culture.
It was meant to fit in the era.
Yes. Yeah. And they take that out and they make it, a distinctly, white-sounding story.
Yeah, about a sailor. It was...
About a sailor. And she's still a courtesan, and it's... I like that. I really liked the music they had created for... the show within the show for the film, but I also like the fact that they were willing to change it and make it this for the stage show, which after it settles and they get it right, it will be really fun.
Yes.
And I just I to risk beating a dead horse, I love what they've done with the Duke, because he is an active participant. He's just but what about this? And shouldn't Satine have another costume? I mean, I know she's a dying hooker, but give her another costume, please, so we can afford it. Which leads me to another thing about the Duke is his costume. I touched on it earlier with the coat, but everything about him screams predatory.
Yes.
And as long as they change... When you first see him in the opening of the show, he's wearing this fur ruffed coat and a top hat, and you lose his face. So they either need to make the ruff smaller or not have him wear a hat when he's introduced. But it's this, knee-length tailcoat with a brocade pattern on the back, these knee-high leather boots, and just everything's black, and you don't see it until the very end of the show, but his shirt is mesh.
That it is.
And that was like during the curtain call was just like, is he wearing mesh?
You two were both obsessing over his boots the entire show.
I
At
love
the end, I never
those
even noticed
boots.
them. I was like, his coat is too cool.
I want to kiss whoever put Tambutu in those boots. So if you happen to be the costume designer for the show, let me know.
Just kiss him wearing those boots. That's probably more what you're
Yes,
into
his
anyway.
girlfriend might not take kindly, but I would totally be down for that. And we also find out the Duke has a name, which is Andre Monroth.
Did he not have a name in the film?
Nope, he was just the Duke.
I kind of liked that. I liked the
I-
archetypal characters.
I liked it too, but at the same time, with all of the backstory they've given people, they kind of need names now.
I did think it was good they got rid of La Chocolat.
They
Probably
changed La Chocolat.
She's now a woman.
Oh, okay. That's who that was.
Yeah,
Okay.
it took me a while too, and then I was like, wait a minute.
Okay, that makes sense.
Anyway,
I was just going to say, touching on costumes, and I need a minute to talk about aesthetics again, because
Yeah.
this show is aesthetic, and everything works really well, and when it works well, and there are some things for me in this show that don't work, and that's okay. My specific example that I'm going to use is in Satine's first number with her performance at the Moulin Rouge. It's about halfway through, and she stops and stumbles, and it's supposed to be an inclination of, okay, she's sick and something's going on, and there's this bright green light cue, and everyone's sort of paused, and she's almost falling over, and it goes away, and she continues, and then there's a line later between her and Zidler making sure she's okay, and that light cue never happens again, and it's never brought up again until the very end, when in Act 2, when she's more visibly ill and she's having these conversations with the other folks, her friends at the Moulin Rouge. But that light cue happens, it's very obvious, and it has very obvious supposed symbolism. It never happens again. I can kind of understand why, because of the color, because of certain connotations with color in this show, but either make it a different color or don't use it, because it makes it obvious, and because everything in this show is so aesthetic and works seamlessly, like specifically with color in the show, and the bright, vivid, bright, saturated colors of the characters of the Moulin Rouge. And then we have a scene later on between the Duke and Satine, where all of
fucking lavender suit.
these pale pastels to show the difference between the world of the Duke and the world of Satine. And so when you have things that don't work, they're really obvious, and I hope that gets changed or adjusted, because for me, it's within the first 10 minutes of the show. It's really obvious, and it's really supposed to mean something, and you're waiting for that to happen again to just be like, okay, she really is ill, something's going on. Like, if you've seen the film, you know where this is going to end. But that never gets brought up again, and it's kind of weird.
I may be misremembering. I think like you did happen again, but it was not in relation. It was just a separate, like they just forgot or didn't put any meaning to it. Maybe it was just a random flash. There was a green flash briefly that was not really part of.
Okay, I
Didn't
don't remember it.
Yeah,
So
it seemed like they just decided to not use it as a.
the only other time I remember seeing green light is in the Green Fairy sequence, because that's
Yeah.
the color you're going to use of lighting in that sequence. So I can understand why you would save the green lighting for that sequence, because it is the color of what we're talking about. So that's why I can kind of understand why they wouldn't use it again up to that point. But you either need to make a change or not use it, because it's weird. And because everything else in this show is so seamless and so clearly thought out, when things like that happen, at least for me, it detracts from everything else, and I get distracted, and I don't want that to happen. I want to be distracted by good things when I see this show.
So when you say this kind of consistent, seamless structure, I mean, I thought that it had that it had a really consistent visual tone.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Tone-wise, I thought the show was all over the place.
Oh, yeah, that's...
In a way that didn't work quite the way I think they meant it to.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the visual
yeah.
aesthetic tone of the
Visually,
show.
I think it was almost perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
They just needed to fix her dress in
Oh,
that
God, yeah.
sequence.
I disagree. I still think that dress was meant
'cause
to be.
It was a quick change, and it should stay like the height it is and the color it is. But you could see the zipper up the back and the gap in the train
When she turned around.
around.
I didn't
like
notice
that. Just that education in theater, like
Yeah.
that's something.
It's
I-
the second
that'll get
preview.
better with
Yeah,
practice.
I know that'll happen. It's just, it's not completely fitted to her yet. They
Yeah.
got to make adjustments.
Okay.
That stuff's fine.
Because I heard you guys saying you didn't love that. I thought you meant just you didn't like the costume.
No.
no,
choice.
I understand.
Okay.
Like I don't like that dress, but that's the point
That's
of
the point.
that dress.
It's supposed to look unnatural.
yeah,
It's because it's not what
because
the
you've
character's
seen
supposed to
her
be.
in
Yeah.
like corsets and you know the club wear most of the
and
show,
it
and then all of a
doesn't
sudden
fit the
she's
spirit of the character.
Yeah.
Whatever character there is.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just that it's clearly needs some adjustments
Mm-hmm.
before they
Yeah.
finish it out, which is fine.
and but the costuming in the show is A+. The promo photo you'll see of Karen Olivo in that red dress, she's in it for like 4 minutes in the show, and it's a crime because I love that dress. Like I wish they won't do it until they transfer to Broadway, but I want them to just release the costume panels for all of this cast.
Yes.
Because all of these characters have a very distinct yet aesthetic, like there's a word here, like they'll have a distinct style, but they're all still within the style of the show.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a visual language that the show
Yeah.
kind of sticks to really, really well.
And I really, really just all these costumes are amazing, and all of those women dancing in corsets and
You know whose costume wasn't amazing?
Christians.
It was just kind of a
It was,
a jacket.
it was plain and just kind of raggedy.
And I guess that was the point, but it didn't help.
No, they should have had him like in the movie. He was in a suit.
Yeah, he was in a suit. He was dressed up for an occasion. He was
Yeah.
like putting on his absolute best to go to this place.
And
And here they just had him show up looking kind of homeless.
yeah, in my personal opinion, and you know how I view things, like I would have had him in like the opposite of the Duke. Like I wouldn't put him in a white suit, but I'd put him in a not tailcoat and a brightly colored shirt.
Yeah.
To make him stand apart from the Duke, but still work with the aesthetic of the whole show. But instead, he's just kind of
Homeless.
homeless.
The whole character, just the entire time, was just kind of homeless. He seemed like, half the time he just seemed, character-wise, the actor probably, this is probably not all his fault. Half the time the character just seemed to just not really know what was going on half the time. I mean, it was maybe meant to be like, oh, it's this wild, he's out of place. But it came across as this is a homeless man who stumbled on stage. It really took me out several times. So like, he doesn't look like he looks like he is not supposed to be there. Not in the character, but like on the set. Like
Yeah.
half the time he looked lost, out of character. Like the actor himself was confused about where he's supposed to be at a certain time.
I mean, it was
And-
the second preview. For all we know, he was.
Yeah, that's probably likely. But it didn't. And again, I didn't hate the show. I feel like I should say that. I
No,
did
we
not
don't hate
it.
this show.
I liked it more than it probably sounds like I did. But there were a
We have
couple.
criticisms.
I have, yes, several very specific criticisms.
Yeah. But relating on something I said earlier about Karen seeming bigger than the sets and Aaron getting lost, Tam as the Duke seems perfectly at home
Yeah.
in all of the
Yes.
sets.
It's another way to make. It's another vote for you to think that he's more of a protagonist.
Yeah.
Because it's. Yeah.
Gosh darn it, sorry.
I mean, he's a complete monster. But you root for him more than you root for Christian half the time. Like,
Yeah.
it
But,
But,
really.
like the show is trying to push you, like I'm trying to figure out the way to phrase this, but it's like they want you to like identify and push with Christian, but instead they just push you away from him.
Yeah, because
and
I
then
think-
you gravitate towards the
Yeah.
toward the Duke. I'm trying to find a better way to say this, but you
Yeah.
gravitate towards this charismatic other character who immediately draws your attention the first time he appears.
Yeah, he was just better cast on every level. I
Yes.
think that was maybe the main issue. It's not that Aaron Tveit a bad actor. I don't know anything about him. I've never seen him in anything before. but I don't think he was cast correctly. Or Tam Mutu was cast too well. Or maybe he was cast badly. I don't know. Maybe he's better as a
that was my first thing when I heard about the casting.
Protagonist.
When I heard about the casting, I was like, how are they going to make that dynamic work? Because I believe I touched on this earlier with, like, the movie Duke was smaller and weaselier than Christian.
But he was more like Christian.
But Tam is more like movie Christian. But anyway, this Duke, like, Tam is easily 6 inches taller than Aaron Tveit, is, to me, prettier. And, like, this might be a sin. Hate me if you want.
Even to me. And I'm going to appreciate that he's a good-looking man. Like, that's fine. But, yeah, like, Aaron came across as weaselly and frightened half the time.
Yeah.
He came across like he should have been cast as the Duke if they made the movie a second time.
That is what I thought, is just, like, they swapped the physicalities for this character.
The only physical difference between him and the Duke in the movie was that he didn't have a weird mustache in this. Literally, yeah, he had the same length hair, same color, same facial structure. He just didn't have the shitty mustache that made him even more hateable.
Yeah.
He didn't have the creepy villain mustache.
Yeah, and I mean the movie was meant to be he's meant to be clearly a villain. You're not meant to like with him. You're not meant to like him at all. He's meant to be completely weak and pathetic. And I liked that they made him stronger in this. I liked a lot of the characterization.
Yes, he's a real villain.
And Tam has a full beard. I'm just like, I can't remember. Let me find the selfie.
He had a weaselly mustache with like a really bad goatee looking thing.
Yeah, but Tam has a full beard. And like, if you've never seen a picture of Tam Mutu, do yourself a favor and look one up. Or if you're listening to this on YouTube, it's probably going to be the background selfie.
Take a selfie of Tam Mutu. Just him.
I have like 4, and I look at potato in all of them.
Not all of them.
Most of them.
You were so proud.
I was so proud of the one I got in Boston because I didn't look like a potato.
This is a non-potato photo.
Non-potato photo.
I tried to take one, and my camera wasn't turned around the right way.
Yeah. So I have a... I have what I call the potato selfie, and then I have one where I look okay. And then the one I took with Aaron, he looks so tired.
I mean, yeah.
He's very sleepy.
And they were all like exhausted. It's a super high energy show.
Ziegler just left. He just fucked off after the show.
Yeah, like we just saw him walk away, and like no one wanted to stop him because he obviously had somewhere to be.
He didn't even walk. He stormed off. You thought he might have been like angry about something in the show.
Looking back, I think he was just didn't want to get stopped. Wanted to go sleep or eat or something.
Go eat a bed. Just get it over with in one go.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of podcast juices, so it's fine.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you could grab me another one, but...
Let's make this part of the show.
But this whole cast is amazing. And, like, Robin Herder, who plays Nene, she is legs up to there, just perfect. I saw her, we've talked about her before on this podcast, actually, because she was in the Fifth Avenue's production of Kiss Me Kate. And,
she's wonderful.
She is wonderful and amazing, and was like, wait, you guys came from Seattle?
Yeah. Speaking of minor characters, can we talk about Baby Doll for a minute?
Oh my god, Baby Doll!
I missed the name the entire show. I couldn't actually hear every time they said
Baby
that
Doll
name.
is an explicitly trans character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whose story is not just about them being trans.
No, I think it was almost nothing about them.
No.
Being all. I think the only mention of the character being trans was when the wig was taken off.
And I can't go back to working those other clubs.
That was it.
Yeah.
It was not it was not the character's arc in any way. It was never even addressed by the other characters that was what was going on.
I loved it. And you don't even notice Baby Doll until she takes off the wig.
Yeah. Is the actor?
The actor, I'm not sure. I met them at the stage door, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, I figured you would know more.
I would know more.
because you would have looked it up, but
yeah,
it was cool. It was refreshing.
Yeah.
And it was welcome. It was just nice to see it and not
as part
have that
of
be
that,
the
I really like and I hope they continue this as they go forward, but the interaction between the Lady Marmalade dancers, Nini and Baby Doll and La Chocolat, and I think her name's Arabia, the dancers, like their dynamic I really, really like. I hope it gets a little bit bigger because it's very minor, but I really like it. I like that cohesion between them and Satine as well. Like, she's part of that group, and it's nice to see these refreshing female friendships with each other, and I like that a lot.
Also, another thing I hope they develop further is, like, in the beginning they're calling her Mother Satine because she's, you know, she's the mom friend.
She's Sigourney Weaver.
But it's only referenced like a few times in the beginning, and I want them to work out a little more, like, why do they call her Mother Satine? What has she done to be? It
wasn't paid off.
Yeah.
Like, half the arcs in the show weren't paid off. The only arc that was really paid off that they added, the only additional arc to the story that they added that was actually paid off was the one, Toulouse.
Oh, Toulouse, yeah.
Yeah.
Whom we haven't mentioned yet.
No. Which is a crime because it's like one of the best parts of the show.
Yeah. So, Toulouse in the movie was John Leguizamo.
Which was out of place and
weird,
but that fit the tone.
Yeah. And the Toulouse in the story is very... Like, he's still the disabled painter, Toulouse Lautrec, who was a real historical person.
But he's not like a weird... He's not John Leguizamo on his knees, which was really distracting.
But the real Toulouse-Lautrec did dwarfism.
But in the movie, it's clearly just him on his knees, like with his like knees in his shoes half the time.
Yeah.
There's a scene where it's explicitly just that, where they like zoom out, and it's clearly like they didn't have enough time to get an effect ready, so he's just like has his knees in his shoes like a child.
So that's been changed for the stage adaptation, and it works a lot better.
Yeah, he feels like a real person in this.
Yeah.
Like,
not John Leguizamo on his knees.
So yeah, I mean, the development of the minor characters in this show is incredible, and like Toulouse being the example, like he's a real character and a real person, and he has interactions with other characters,
and he has a backstory with Satine.
Yes. Yeah.
I loved the backstory part. Which is why they no longer had just the narcoleptic Argentinian, who's not even narcoleptic now.
I know, that was the worst part. They should have had him just pass out at the end of the like as they're doing as they're like bowing and doing what's that called?
Curtain call.
Curtain call. It's fine. Just have him just like fall into the audience. Like just be the reference, and then the show just ends.
Okay, I want to talk about the curtain call, but let's finish talking about character development. So most of these characters now have backstories. Like, Toulouse and Satine knew each other as children, and they, you know, Toulouse tells Christian about this and tells him Satine's backstory, so we get the even more tragic backstory of Satine, and which doesn't also really pay off. And
it paid off for Toulouse.
Yes.
The whole it almost felt like her tragic backstory, her quote unquote tragic backstory, because it was comical almost how tragic it was. It suited him. It helped to build his character more than hers. It was this kind of, which worked. It should have worked for both of them.
Yeah, so as I said, I want more. I want this to be more her story because we get that element of it.
But like, it felt a lot of ways. This show felt mainly like Toulouse's story. Big chunks of the actual, emotional plot. I don't know. I was more emotionally attached to Toulouse than most of the other characters in the show. His there's like this really subtle way that his arc is paid off, basically, when, you know, this unrequited love. It really worked.
Yeah.
In a way that the rest of it didn't quite meet.
No.
His arc was above the rest of the show to me. It was like a little bit more complete.
He served as more of a narrator than Christian did.
Yeah, and he was better at it.
Yeah.
Because I cared about him more than I cared about Christian.
Yeah. But I would like to talk about the curtain call now, which, if they change everything about the show, as long as they keep the curtain call, so they come out in the male chorus comes out in the costumes like from the movie, where they have the waistcoats and the jackets and the tutus, and they start doing they rehash the can. And then all of a sudden, Toulouse, Santiago, and the Duke are there, and they start singing Hey Ya by Outkast. But it works.
Again, to me, it was jarring that the track wasn't changed at all. at all. It was just they took it from the record and just put it in the play.
Yeah.
Which I feel like hopefully they will fix that. Because it was
They
really jarring. Every time a sound came on that wasn't kind of tailored to the show itself, it took me right out of it.
We can hope that they'll adjust that and make that more seamless.
Yeah. But yeah, I still love that song being in the show.
And like it just at the end, and then like, pardon me, everyone comes out and like it's obviously a curtain call. Everyone is an actor now, not their characters, which I like because they sank us into the world and they bring us back out.
Yes.
It's like a full-on journey. And I really, if they keep the opening, they need to keep the curtain call.
Yes.
And also just, I never thought I would get to see Tim Mutu sing Outcast.
But here we are.
And I just...
At this point, were they singing to the audience again?
Yes.
That was one of the strengths of the show, was the fact that when it opened, the opening number was not like it was, a cabaret. It was like just a performance to the audience. It wasn't an audience like in the
They weren't
on the
performing
stage.
A show within a show.
Yeah, it was just performing a show, and it was really, really strong. Like half the time I forgot that it was a play at the beginning section because it was just so. Especially when I was looking at the people down in the almost like dinner theater section.
Yeah.
That was
tables.
because that really, to them, that's all it really was, just a dinner like a at a show, a music show, not a play. It was really great. I think that was one of the strengths of it. I wish they did that more often throughout the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Like the chorus numbers and the ones where they're directed at the audience are the strongest parts of the show.
Yeah.
As of when we saw it.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any other points you want to cover?
I don't think points. I'm a fan of Zidler's confetti cane, but
Yeah,
that's
Zidler's
just me.
confetti cane. And just Zidler is now explicitly gay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like he has a boyfriend,
Boy toy.
Yeah.
Boy toy. Who ends up spying on everyone for the Duke. And,
That was him?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed who that was.
And like it was supposed to read as just doing it for money, but like the body language in that scene read as he was also sleeping with the Duke.
How could you tell? Because like when you see him again, he's like wearing a collar up to his like eyes, and he has a big top hat. Like I couldn't even tell.
No, this is in the scene in the Duke's house.
Yes, but then when you see him again, I mean, yeah, in the Duke's house, he's like wearing a bunch of stuff. You couldn't even recognize him as the same character. I couldn't.
I could, but like the body language that I read in that scene was that he was also sleeping with the Duke. And probably not, like, that was
Probably just you.
Probably just
projecting.
me. But I was just like, so Zidler's gay, the Duke is ambiguously bisexual, and I appreciated that. But I think we should rate this.
Yes,
So-
we should.
What kind of unit of measurement are we using?
We
Any
don't
kind
have
you
units.
want.
Okay.
You can rate
And-
whatever
and
you want.
Whatever categories you want with whatever units you want.
Okay, I'll go last.
We threw the rules out the window.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
we tried to have like this and this and this, but then it's like, nah, I want to do
No.
this. So,
I have ratings if you want me to read
Yeah.
them because I came prepared.
yeah, Lane is
So-
the responsible one.
I know. So, first thing is the aesthetic of the show and the overall, because I'm me, aesthetic of the show gets sparkle emoji because it's good. It's solid. It fits. It immediately takes you right into the world. For the most part, there are things that need to get adjusted, as I said. But overall, it's just wonderful and sparkly and immediate. Like the second you walk in to that theater, you are entranced by what you see. The lighting and the stage itself is just gorgeous. Overall story gets a 4 out of 10
Hell yeah.
because it is just,
It's a mess.
it's a hot mess.
It's a big pile of jank.
And I hope that they make some changes because I want to like the story of the show. I want to be able to enjoy more than just the aesthetic of it. But as of the time I saw it, 4 out of 10. Overall feeling of the show, 4.5 out of 10 heart exclamation point emoji. I enjoy this show. I walked out of the show really enjoying it. And there are things that I would change. I agree that it's gonna evolve and grow as they get out of previews and as they finish this out of town and hopefully eventually go on to bigger and better things. But for myself, I overall enjoyed this show. I can't give it a full, complete rating because, as we've stated, there are things that I don't like about this show. But overall, I enjoy it. 4.5 out of 10. Who wants to go next?
I am just finishing up a scale real quick.
I will go.
Okay.
So I'll give the first half of the show 3 fire alarms out of 10. Because, so we didn't mention, there were 3 consecutive fire alarms before the show.
And a door delay.
And a door delay. And for the first half, I couldn't not think about that. It was just kind of distracting that we were forced to try to attempt to go outside 3 times because no one was moving. So I was sitting on the staircase for 25 minutes with a bunch of angry Bostonian firemen wielding axes, swearing about why they didn't want to be there.
You guys are just gonna go right back upstairs.
I know, it was the most Boston thing I've ever heard. But for being in Boston for 2 days ever in my life. But so that was great. The rest of the show, I'd give it as it is when we saw it. I'd give it overall. I'm not going to break it down to each aspect,
okay. Yeah.
but overall, I'd give it 7 out of 10.
Okay.
And then what unit am I going to give? Let's see.
It's up to you.
It's up to me. Angry Boston firemen. Because they were just so tired.
You're not wrong.
No, I'm changing it. I'll give it 7.5 exhausted actors out of 10 because
Okay.
everyone at the end of that line, like after we got to the stage door, they were all just dead.
Except for Karen, who kept running back and forth greeting people.
Yeah.
And was the perkiest goddamn person you'd ever seen.
Everyone else just seemed like they wanted to die.
Aaron was the most tired. Tam was
Professionally tired.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was just
Tam was rude. Almost.
No,
Aaron was who maybe it just from what I saw, I think he was tired. Down the line,
yeah.
somebody was talking to him too long, and that's fine. He needs to go home, but that's how exhausted some of these actors were.
Yeah.
They couldn't even put an
Yeah.
act on it.
And Tam was high-fived me because I was just I saw you in Secret Garden and this and he was cool and I was just so thanks for this. This is cool, and we high-fived.
Yeah.
So are you done reading?
I hope so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on a scale of Wes Anderson to Baz Luhrmann.
Oh no. Wait, what's the good what's the good end? They're both they're both positive things. What's the lowest end of the scale?
On a scale of Wes Anderson to Baz Luhrmann, I will give this a Joel Schumacher.
Okay.
Oh God.
Oh, so you've hated it. If that's the scale, this is the biggest pile of garbage to ever.
I didn't hate it.
I'll give it George Clooney Batman nipples.
I don't hate Joel Schumacher.
I hate the Batman nipples.
I mean, I hate the Batman nipples too, but Joel Schumacher just has a thing for nipples. Yeah, I gotta live with
There's
it.
a thing for George Clooney's leather nipples,
Oh God.
Okay.
which is the cover, the title of my memoir. No.
Okay. And then I created a couple of scales just because I'm me. And so Aaron, on a scale of Mike Warren to Gabe Goodman.
Who are these people?
People he's played.
Okay. I'm not the only one who'd be wondering that. On behalf of the audience, who are these
On
people?
behalf of the audience, hang on a sec. I have totally forgotten where I was going with this.
I've forgotten who I am at this point. So
When did I become the sane one?
Okay. So on a scale
from the beginning, you knew this going in.
On a scale of Mike Warren to Gabe Goodman, I give him a Danny Zuko.
Great.
Okay.
Cool.
And
awesome.
then
I don't know who that is.
he played the lead in Grease live, which was Danny Zuko.
Cool.
And then the other one doesn't really work out, so I'm not going to do it. Just Tan Mutu, hard eyes, fire emoji.
Fair.
Okay. So just kind of a kerfuffle of emotion.
Yeah. So, but overall, I think this show is incredibly promising.
Yes.
Like, they have the right creative team to get it where it needs to be the juggernaut I know it's going to turn into.
Like a distracted 5th grader. It has a lot of potential.
Yes.
I feel called out.
That's how you think I feel. I'm still in 5th grade.
So
it's not accurate.
So yeah, that just... I love this show. I hope it does really, really well. We, like, all of us who have experience have our criticisms of it, but overall, very positive experience, fire alarms included. And I think we're done.
I think we are.
Give Rob one hell of an edit.
Yeah. Rob, who is not here currently, will be doing the editing for us.
RSVP Rob.
Yep, who will come back from the dead just to do this.
Gotta steal these jokes.
So, anyway, this has been Let's Put On a Show. I'm Sabra.
I'm Sam.
I'm Lane.
And let's go break some legs, you guys. But not, like, actually.
I'm not cleaning up anyone's corpse today.
Yeah,
Except for Rob's.
Yeah, it's too much paperwork.
Beware, I live. I'm back from the grave. Anyway, thanks to special guest star Sam for acting in my capacity as the Shadow Rob, and also for performing the dark rites that return me to the land of the living. Anyway, Let's Put On a Show is a production of Blood and Thunder Publications, all rights reserved. Our exit music and entrance music is Ragamama by Purple Planet Music, and I'd like to give an extra special shout out to the Bostonian firemen who traumatized Sam. It's always hilarious. It's not actually hilarious. Don't traumatize your friends. But then again, they shouldn't have killed me. So, you know what? Fuck them a bit, I guess. Yeah. Don't actually. Well, I mean, if they're into it, I guess. Sorry, this has gone on way too long. My rebirth has somewhat scrambled the old think meats. So just go ahead and have yourself a nice day, guys. Yeah.